Well, welcome, friends. I think we'll go ahead and get started, and then if there are others who join us, we'll fill them in as they come. But welcome. So glad that you're here tonight to share in this knowledge camp. What can we do about climate change? And we know it's a little bit of an overwhelming topic, but there are things that we can do. That's the hopeful piece, and so we'll be talking about that tonight. Carl Wamser is going to be our primary presenter this evening. I should say, well, I'm Jenny. I'm the pastor at Lake Oswego UCC, and Carl is the chair of our green team, and has been put together this presentation that we'll be talking a little bit about some of the things that we have done at Lake Oswego UCC. But then we really want to open it up for some discussion and sharing about what is happening in other congregations and what we might do individually or together to continue to take action. So I want to just start us off with a little bit of a grounding. So we're here tonight because we care about Mother Earth, and we're here tonight because our Christian faith really invites us, and I think it really demands of us to be people who care for our earth. And we hear that, back in Genesis about we're created as part of the web of creation. We're created and called good. And we're created to cultivate and tend and steward our earth. And so we come at this, of course, from our faith background, and really are here because we want to do something, and we want to help bring about that realm of God for our earth and for all of creation. So I want to invite you tonight just to begin by putting your feet on the floor if you can, wherever you are. And you're welcome to close your eyes if you like, but just to imagine roots going down out of your feet through the floor, and down through your first story, through your basement, your crawl space, down to the Mother Earth that is below us. And to imagine your roots sinking into that wet earth and that soil that is just teeming with life. And just to feel that connection with our Mother Earth, who grounds us and anchors us. And then I invite you just to take a deep breath in and out. And as you breathe in, to just remember that breath of life, that spirit that is in each one of us, that binds us together to all of creation, to each other. That gift of air and oxygen from our Creator, and from the plants and the trees that help to sustain us every day. And so as we breathe in, we just remember that connectedness to all of life. And with our feet anchored in the ground, and our lungs full of that spirit, we open our hearts to God. And we ask, O loving Creator, that you would be with us in this time. Make us open to each other, open to your Spirit, open to the ways that you will inspire us to work to care for our fragile planet. Be with us tonight. And just open our eyes, our ears, our hearts, our hands, and our feet to follow in your loving and your life-giving ways. And we pray this in your name, O Christ. Amen. Thank you all. And I'll turn it over to Carl. And as we're going along, if you have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, or you can use the raise hand feature on your under reactions, and let us know if you have a question, or if we don't see it, just unmute and ask us a question too. We're small enough, we can do that as well. So go ahead, Carl.
Thank you very much, Jenny. So I represent the LOUCC Green Team. Right off, I should point out that we share the green team with Beit Havarim. It's a Reform congregation that we share our property with, and they are members as well. But our mission is to honor, protect, and inform others about the treasures of creation, as Jenny very well put. So among other things, we promote dialogue, we try to be a voice of hope, and that's exactly what I'd like to do today. Kind of express what's possible, what can we do about climate change, even though it seems like a huge problem. For myself, I come to this, I'm a retired chemistry professor. I spent my career working on solar energy. We call it artificial photosynthesis. Tried to learn from plants in terms of how they harness solar energy. And have always been trying to work out ways that we might be efficient at using solar energy as well. That's my background. So climate change is the issue. Primarily, everything about climate change is coming through global warming. No matter who measures it, there's agreement that the Earth's temperature has been going up, has been since the Industrial Revolution, actually. And the warming process is what leads to virtually all of the problems you hear about with climate change. Glaciers melting, sea level rise, extreme weather events. Apparently, I just heard today we had more rain in any one day in September than Portland has ever had. Nope. Strange things keep happening with our climate and our weather. The global warming is understood to be caused primarily by the increase in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. As a chemist, I'll say CO2 or carbon dioxide interchangeably. This is the Keeling curve. It has been called the most important data set of the 20th century. It illustrates with great detail the actual level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere over the years. And it's clearly going up. There is one ray of hope in all of this. If you look at the seasonal variation, there are times when the carbon dioxide concentration actually goes down. It starts in May, goes to September. This is when the northern hemisphere plants are waking up and doing their photosynthesis. They're actually taking enough CO2 out of the atmosphere to make a measurable drop in the total CO2. There are many more plants in the northern hemisphere than the southern hemisphere, so can't keep up, and in the winter and fall, CO2 comes back up and to an even higher level. But this seasonal variation is the Earth breathing. It's literally taking in CO2, exhaling CO2 at different times of the year. The problem is we've been putting too much CO2 into the atmosphere ourselves by human activities. So if we want to do something about climate change, we need to do something about carbon dioxide primarily. So the first thing is to decide whether you're going to act individually or as a group. We're all representing churches, but there are many things you can do as individuals, and we'll have lots of suggestions in terms of what you might be able to do and the groups you could associate with. But we either have to release less CO2, which means using less fossil fuels, or when we use energy, support renewable energy. There are some ways to remove carbon dioxide. As we just saw, plants can actually do a remarkable job of removing carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. So we can support sustainable agriculture and support healthy soil. So plants and soil are globally huge in terms of their capability to take up carbon dioxide. So the first thing you might want to do is decide how you want to find an ally to work with. Where do you find resources to learn more? And where do you find allies to advocate for things that can change? Of course, you might start with our UCC. They have environmental justice ministries. Central Pacific Conference has a climate action network. Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon has creation justice. Interfaith Power and Light is a religious response to global warming. there are a number of faith-based groups that very specifically address the problems of climate change. I'll talk about one more later, eco-faith recovery. Many of these are specific to the Oregon or Portland area, but wherever you are, I'm sure you can find appropriate places. And besides the faith-based organizations who might be your allies, there are numerous other organizations like Sierra Club, almost any organization with a 350 in their name. The 350, incidentally, refers to what we hoped carbon dioxide concentration would stop at, 350 parts per million. We've now gone way past 410 parts per million. We're just doing a big experiment on the Earth right now. So in terms of, still in the concept of gathering ideas for what to do, where to learn, one thing we did at Lake Oswego UCC was go for a sustainability certification. This one is done by Clackamas County, and you may have to check to see where your local organizations who certifies sustainability. And it's not that I'm necessarily suggesting you need to do this, but they have this fabulous checklist of things you can do to be sustainable. To be gold, which we certified for, you have to do at least 55 different things of sustainability. And they have sustainable practices in organizational policy, energy, transportation, materials handling. I'll just illustrate one. This is reduce, reuse, recycle, and it just gives you ideas. Oh, are we using rechargeable batteries? Do we print our stuff double-sided? Do we use recycled paper? Have you ever done a waste audit? Actually sort through your waste and see what it is you're throwing away, how much of that could be recycled. We did that when we were certified in 2018. And it can be fun, I suppose, to just check your waste and sort it into different kinds of things and decide how much can be recycled instead of thrown away. But if we really want to get to the concept of reducing the use of fossil fuels, which of course we use for energy, and as we use them for energy, we burn to CO2. The United States is still completely hooked on fossil fuels. More than 80% of the energy we use comes from fossil fuels, petroleum, natural gas, or coal. Renewable energy is that little green slice of about 11%. And within that 11%, there's biomass. So burning wood technically is renewable because it can be grown on a yearly cycle. There's wind energy, hydroelectric, and solar is just a small sliver of the total renewable energy. So to minimize fossil fuels, you can get all kinds of ideas. And this is just way too busy a list, but it's very easy to go through and imagine things that you can do. Use less energy of all types. The quickest way to do that is to get a home energy audit. In fact, just find out, where does your home use energy? Where are you losing it? And where can you improve it? When you do use energy, try and make the products and sources energy efficient. LED lights, Energy Star appliances, solar power, if you can arrange it. And I'll talk more about solar because I like solar, of course. A lot of the fossil fuels emissions come from our transportation. So if you can avoid gas-powered vehicles, planes, cars, do something different instead. Avoid single-use disposable items. Buy local. The more you buy local, the less transportation will be involved. And transportation always involves, almost always involves petroleum. Amazingly, eating less meat can have a tremendous effect. For every human on Earth, there are 3 chickens. And don't even get me started on cows and pigs. There's an immense amount of livestock that we're supporting, and the resources they use are huge. And plants take in carbon dioxide, livestock puts out carbon dioxide. So besides things you can do as individuals, You can advocate that our government, our agencies who take care of the big picture do the right thing. Power generation is a big part of where CO2 comes from. Coal power plants in particular are bad, but fossil fuels get subsidies. Why should they? And why should emission of carbon not be disincentivized? Eventually, energy systems should be electrified instead of by burning materials, and the electricity should come from primary renewable energy sources, such as solar. And then finally, at the end, we'll talk about sustainable agriculture and soil and the difference that that can make. And in general, we're going to need a lot of new ideas and new technologies in order to take care of the changes that are going to be necessary to deal with climate change. So solar energy, my favorite quote about solar energy, all my seminars include this one place or another. Every hour, the sun provides the earth with as much energy as humans use in 1 year. We just need to tap into a small amount of what we're being blessed with constantly in order to meet all of our needs. We just need to find ways to do that. And there are ways to do that. Again, faith-based organizations, the Oregon Interfaith Solar Campaign has a number of different partners, and they are supporting community solar. And I'll just briefly go through how the community solar works, because it can, in fact, work very well for a church that has an appropriate roof. An appropriate roof would be south-facing, not have a lot of shading, and be on a building that is sturdy enough to hold solar panels. At Lake Oswego, we've tried very hard. We have only 68% solar access because of the huge trees around us. And to be viable, you really need to have at least 75%. But you can still engage in community solar by being an investor. But let's just try an example. If you're a church that has an excellent roof, community solar will purchase the solar panels, put them on the roof, and technically be the owner of the solar array for 10 years. The original cost, a typical roof for LOUCC would be about 25 kilowatts and might cost about $50,000 for the full installation. The rebates are tremendous. Federal tax credit is 26%. The Oregon tax credit has just been reinstituted as of today, September 27th, 40% tax credit for the Oregon state tax credit. The Energy Trust of Oregon puts in a substantial rebate as well. By the time you're done, you may be down to something in the $20,000. And what the Community Solar Project will do is find investors, people who would like to invest in increments of $1,000, and they will get their money back over 10 years. They get their money back because you pay them off instead of paying your electric company. So for 10 years, whatever you would have paid for your electric bills, you pay back the investors. They can choose anywhere from 0 to 4% interest. They could choose to give you the $1,000, of course, and they'd be a donor, not an investor. But you get solar energy right away and all your electricity. For 10 years, you might be paying your original electric bills. After that, you're the owners. So community solar is an excellent way to go. And if your church hasn't started to look into that, I strongly encourage that. So besides trying to remove fossil fuels from the equation and remove CO2 from the atmosphere, natural ecosystems can do a fabulous job of taking CO2 out of the atmosphere if we support them properly. The Green Team was inspired by a book and a talk given by Kristen Olson. She's a local author who has been on a mission to point out the value of healthy soil. Plants and soil in particular are globally just a huge system that can sequester and hold tremendous amounts of carbon. So we asked ourselves, what are we doing with our land? As part of the Reckoning with Racism cohort, we developed a complete land story, or how is it we happen to be owners of this land? And it was fascinating, but it led us to the question of what are we doing with our land, and are we being good stewards? It's a very nice piece of property. There's a forest in the back. There's a little creek that runs through the forest. There is a distressing amount of pavement, but it is overall an excellent piece of land. So that led us to figure out what are we doing with our land. If you look closely, this is the back 40, the Nettle Creek area, and there is a creek down there. And it's clear that things are completely covered with ivy. You can't see the creek. And English ivy is just an invasive, non-native plant. So dealing with saving the creek involved a couple of features. First, managing the water. So I don't know how many years ago that was. The interpretive stand was put up, a kiosk explaining what a parking lot rain garden can do. It takes the water so that it does not wash over the parking lot and then down into the street. It goes into a rain garden to support plants and then is diverted directly into the natural waterways. So we have an interpretive kiosk and a parking lot rain garden. We have bioswales along the main road in the front and also around various places. Again, they make sure the water soaks into the soil, supports plants, and is diverted directly into natural waterways. So restoring the forest, here we've had, well, a number of volunteers, but I would have to call out Kathy White in particular, who has been in the forest pulling ivy forever and trying to get as many volunteers to be with her as possible. She has recently obtained grant support for this process so that we can actually get more than volunteers, get organizations in to help us to restore the health of the forest by removing the invasive plants. So we're partnering with Tryon Creek Watershed Council, City of Lake Oswego, and Sound Native Plants, and actively removing the ivy and other invasive plants so the soil and the forest can be back to normal, more native. In terms of the rest of the land around LOUCC, skipped something. There we go, sorry. Oh, if you want to restore habitat for your backyard, there's backyard habitats. This seems to operate only in the Portland metro area in southern Washington, but in other areas, I suspect you may have similar activities and organizations. And they point out the 5 elements of having a good habitat for your backyard or for any native environment. Native plants are meant to be there and can provide excellent soil and underground ecosystems. You do need to remove noxious weeds or anything that's not native. Reduce pesticides so pollinators can be healthy. Plants require them. Manage the stormwater and provide habitat for wildlife. Why do we love native plants? This illustrates the immense root system you can have on a native plant. This is a prairie grass, but it's typical of what native plants can do. Their roots create an ecosystem under the ground that is just immense amounts of organic matter that is just kept in the ground instead of going back into the atmosphere. The grass on your lawn simply can't compare. The roots of a typical lawn only go down a few inches compared to native plants. So what does our front part of our property look like? It might look like a lawn, but in fact it's not. We were really distressed, horrified, a lot of different verbs to describe our reaction to finding black plastic essentially everywhere around the property at Lake Oswego UCC. We have been suffocating the soil for decades. The older members of the church think this was probably put down in the 1960s. So it's been many decades of soil, and the only thing growing on top are the weeds that can manage to collect and create their own dirt from the bark dust that was put down on top of the black plastic. So at this point, we had gotten involved with Eco-Faith Recovery. Eco-Faith is a faith-based ecumenical ministry that gathers people together, provides leadership development, and tries to recover the proper relationship between humans and God's creation. And they have a 12-step program for recovery, and it's been an excellent group to work with. They had one specific project that we got involved with and found very interesting. It's the Community Carbon Project. So it very specifically was looking for faith-based pilot projects where you could find ways to improve the soil and draw carbon into the soil, specifically measuring how much carbon you can take into the soil. And of course, we had soil that really could be improved. So we were on this, and we developed a plan. So this was developed with our Beit Haverim Green Team together. We started with a pilot area 10 feet by 10 feet in the front of the church, where in fact you saw the black plastic partly removed. Remove the black plastic, and that overlayer of weeds that was on top of the black plastic was removed. I analyzed the soil. I mean, I'm a chemist, but I didn't do the analysis myself. There are agencies that will analyze the soil for organic content. And then we tried to make it decent soil. We added garden mulch to it and planted 3 kinds of native plants. So the check marks indicate what we've done already. After 1 year, and every year after, we intend to analyze the soil and see if it's doing any better. We can calculate how much carbon has been soaked into the soil based on what we've done, and kind of calculate what the future potential would be. A couple things at the bottom are ways we'd like to expand this. We have tremendous trees and plants all around our property, and they're already growing, taking in carbon dioxide, creating wood and leaves and everything else. I think it's possible that they're already pulling in more carbon dioxide than we're putting out as a church. So they're saving us personally, and we thank them for that. And you can measure that. There is an app for that if you want to measure how much carbon dioxide your trees are soaking in from the atmosphere. It's called iTree. We haven't gotten anyone interested in doing that yet, but we think it would be a fascinating project. And of course, we want to encourage others, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. So I'll walk you through the steps. We laid out a 10 by 10 site in the front of the church with those just concrete blocks measured for a 10 by 10 square. Started the laborious project of peeling back the weeds and then removing the black plastic. Eventually, this is just one quarter of that 10 by 10 section, 5 by 5. And you can see some of the soil looks almost normal, and that's places where the black plastic has been ripped and roots have kind of gotten their way in to the soil. But a lot of it is just plain tan dirt. It's not really soil, it's just dirt. So I sampled the soil. The top 6 inches is about 3% organic matter. If you go down farther, the second 6 inches is less than 1% organic matter. So eventually, by January, all 10 by 10 area had been removed. Incidentally, you see one area in kind of the front right with the little holes. I think there was a stump there, and that one never had black plastic on it. And we analyzed the soil there too, just to be curious. and that had 19% organic matter. So that was semi-healthy soil in that area. It shows the difference of what can be with reasonable soil. So garden mulch put on top. This, of course, is great soil, a lot of organic matter that we're adding. It's about a cubic yard of garden mulch. We turned over the soil underneath and added a layer of leaves as well. So, of course, in terms of total carbon, we are stacking the deck. We're helping the plant. We don't want to put native plants in without some help, of course. The plants we put in, there were 3 native plants. Fescue is the tall grass. Kinnikinnick is a short shrub, and birchleaf spirea is a flowering shrub. So this is what they looked like when they first went in. It's what they looked like yesterday. They managed their first summer pretty well. They're establishing themselves, and it looks like they will be doing well. So we're encouraged about that. Okay, so at this point, monitoring the soil by measuring, analyzing is one thing, and it appeals to me as a chemist. But there are other fun things you can do to measure soil. And we came across one sponsored by Oswego Lake Watershed Council. It's called Soil Your Undies. And I'm going to turn this over to Jenny to just talk our way through what Soil Your Undies is about and how we've involved children in this process.
Thanks, Carl. Yeah, so some of you may have heard of this project already, and this is, I think, started by some Oregon farmers as a way just to test the health of your soil. And so the idea, of course, is that the soil is full, healthy soil is full of lots of rich billions of microbes that will break down organic matter like cotton. And so the idea is that you bury a pair of underwear, and then you dig it up a few months later to see what it looks like. So we're going to show you, we did this last spring. Our director of faith development, Katie Diaz, did this as one of our children's moments. So we'll kind of show you how she framed it, and then we'll show you the results in just a minute.
Does everybody see that?
Yep.
Unique today. In Lake Oswego,
You gotta start again.
today we are celebrating something very special, Earth Day. So we're gonna do something pretty unique today. In Lake Oswego, there's this campaign going on called Soil Your Undies. And basically what this campaign is about is you bury a pair of underwear. You can just bury an old pair in your house. Here I have these very giant underwear that we're gonna bury today. And so you just dig up a hole. I've already dug up a hole right here. And then you just put them in the dirt, and then you just bury them. Now this may seem kind of odd. You might be thinking, why are we doing this? Well, in 2 months, we're gonna dig the underwear back up, and the underwear is supposed to look different. It's supposed to be a little bit more tattered, and what that does is tell us how healthy our soil is, because soil has things in it that eats away materials like cotton. And you might wonder, what does the health of our soil have to do with church? Well, one thing that we know is that God made us and God loves us. God also made everything around us. God made the plants and the trees and even the soil. And God loves that. And it's our job to take care of the earth around us. Just like God loves us and we're supposed to love others, we're also supposed to love creation. Friends, I want to leave you with this prayer. God, thank you for creating the world, and thank you for creating us. Help us to do a good job taking care of all of the wonderful things that you have created. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Carl. So that was just a piece we were then and still are now actually pre-recording our worship services. So that was just a way to connect it, to sort of show our kids what we were doing. And so then we actually just dug this up this week. We were supposed to come back after 2 months, but then we waited a little bit longer. So we had my two boys helped us earlier this week, or I guess last week, dig up the pair in the back, which was surprising. I think we just are going to show you the picture of that. It was surprisingly not as much as we thought. Did you want to show the video, Carl? Or
I think we have time. Are you okay with that?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So we'll show you the video of digging this up. Okay. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, today we are finishing out our project, Soil Your Undies, which is something that we've done this last spring and summer at LO UCC. This is a project that helps us look at the health of our soil. And one of the things that we talk about often at church is that God has created all of this, has created us and the trees and the plants and the soil. And part of our job as people of faith is to take care of the soil around us. And so we buried 5 months ago a pair of underwear in this exact spot. And the idea is that soil is full of microbes, and these microbes eat away at cotton. And so the healthier the soil, then hopefully the more tattered your underwear will be when you dig it up. So I've got two helpers here today, Hudson and Luke, who are going to help us dig up our underwear. So can you guys go ahead and dig it up?
Can I take a flag?
Yep, see what you can find.
Okay. Oh, I see them. There, a piece. Oh, look.
Oh yeah, can you hold it up? Let's see. It looks like we have some holes here. There's a couple holes here. Oh, and some dirt. So this soil's a little bit healthy, but probably could be even healthier. All right, thank you, Hudson and Luke. Thank you. So yeah, so this was interesting. We had expected a lot more tattered underwear, so that was a little bit surprising. And then we also buried. We don't have a video of it going in, but we buried two pairs up front in the church. And that one was buried at the community carbon plot that Carl just showed you, where they had pulled up the plastic, and then the other was buried in a different area. So I think we'll show the video from digging this up as well. So this, oh yeah, okay. You'll hear a little. 5 months ago, we buried two pairs of underwear here at Lake Oswego UCC as part of the Soil Your Undies project to check the health of the soil. So this is a little bit of an experiment because this one here is buried in our community carbon plot, where our green team has removed the black plastic that was underneath the soil and has replanted native plants. And then on this one over here is just the old soil that had plastic underneath it. And so we're going to compare these two pairs of underpants and see how healthy our soil is. So this helper Hudson is going to go first. So will you dig up your underwear? There is not much left on this pair of underwear.
Can you dig down there and see if you find any more?
Wow, that one I think is the healthiest soil. If we go a little deeper, there's a big ball. Here's part of it stuck onto a big ball. Let me see.
Thank you. So this was obviously much more eaten up in that area. And then here you'll see the final copy. Hudson's holding the one he dug up, and then Luke dug up the other one, which is actually still quite a bit tattered, even for being there where the plastic was. So this was just a fun way to engage the kids, and an easy thing that you all could do in your churches or do with your children or youth. And actually, we encourage people that our church, our green team gave out pairs of underwear, or people could pick them up if they needed them to bury them at home, or you can use a pair that you already have at home. So again, just a fun way to engage all ages, and just check the soil at your church or at your house. Thanks, Carl.
Thank you, Jenny. So just to sum up, what we've done in this talk so far is to suggest that you find allies so you can learn more about climate change and become advocates for climate change. Gave you some ideas for sustainable practices, ways to reduce the use of fossil fuels, suggested community solar might be an excellent way to support renewable energy. Sustainable agriculture, and healthy soil in particular. Native habitats are going to be very important for taking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Advocate for all of these things, and if you're going to attack something big and difficult, have fun with it. So that's the point. I've gone through a lot of resources and references, and it was very quick, and I'm sure you didn't catch them all. I plan to develop a handout that'll look something like this. These are all the references and the sources that I referred to in this talk. And at this point, we'd like to get your ideas and expand on this. So feel free to add in the chat any ideas that you have for expanding this particular list. And then send your email in the chat, and I'd be happy to give you what we finally come up with. So discussion time. We'd like to hear from you. And again, please feel free to use the chat to share ideas that you might like to add to the resources or share with others, and then send your email if you'd like to find out what we ultimately come up with.
Hey, I'd like to share. I'm Judy with Bridgeport, and a few years ago we had a row of arborvitaes between the parking lot and the sidewalk. So we created more of a barrier, and we didn't feel safe sometimes going to our car at nights if we were by ourselves and everything. So everybody hated the arborvitae, so we decided to get rid of them and plant a hedgerow, and it was all native shrubs and plants and everything. And so that was our first project. And then later on, we had a dry well in our parking lot and had a little problem with it. So I did a bunch of research, and we ended up we worked with DPave. Are you familiar with DPave? So they came and did a whole project at our church, and we ended up taking out a strip in the middle of the parking lot and are going around the drain in the middle of the parking lot and creating a naturescaped area and a rain garden. And then we also did another rain garden at the other end of the church. So we were able to disconnect a couple of downspouts and have that flow into the rain garden. And then we also got credit on the Clean Rivers on our stormwater bill that we still get credit for. I think we got harvested like 2/3 of the roof rainwater. So that was cool. And we put in some permeable pavers, and we also have a little eco roof on top of our little shed roof that goes over our basement stairs. And we've had another person that lives in the neighborhood, pollinator what was her name, Pollinator Project, where she came and got Boy Scouts and other volunteers to come and take the grass out of one of our parking strips on the north side of the church. And they planted all natives, but all pollinators like milkweed and other kind of just pollinator things. And we also had the city come and plant trees in the parking lot. So I'm very excited about all the things that you guys have done, and I want to look into some of these other organizations. But DPave was great because they just handled the whole project and got grant money and, took out a lot of the pavement and stuff. So that was really cool.
Yeah, I had not heard of that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, yeah, we had a great experience with DPave when we did that parking lot rain garden in 2012 and 2013. They're a great organization to help remove that asphalt and other things. Yeah, thank you, Judy. That's great. And that's awesome, too, all the ways that you can find, use those strips in your parking lot, because even just those little bits can make a huge difference. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's an actual project. DPave is, an actual, it's a thing like.
It's a nonprofit organization, and I've actually volunteered with some of their other projects. They do schools as well as churches and other areas where they just take out the asphalt, and they have a whole system down. It's really fun. Hard work, but a lot of fun. And it's just transformative. I've seen some school playgrounds that used to be part of a parking lot. It's just all native plants and bark dust and things for kids to play on. It's just amazing.
Jan, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to talk about the DPave thing there, but Jenny beat us to it. So yeah, it was really fun. It was a great project to do. But yeah, it's probably why my back's like it is today. I don't know. It was great.
It was fun because our kids participated. We have some pictures someplace of everybody looking all sweaty and awful in front of the work. But you feel once you have done some little thing, it leads you to something else, doesn't it, Carl? That's what I thought I heard you say, not just academically, but just to think through things. And there are just so many things that we can do that we haven't thought of before. And
sorry, I wonder if there's an organization for removing black plastic.
Oh, we do.
That is the huge project facing us now. There's acres of it.
Yeah.
Shout out to Carl, because I know that was backbreaking work that you did, removing that 10 by 10 piece of, black plastic. I know that you worked so hard on that.
Yeah, just a couple inches of weeds on top of the black plastic can weigh a lot. And they kind of rolled up eventually, which is kind of fun, but it's still pretty heavy.
Yeah, go ahead, David. Tell us about what you guys have done.
We put on solar panels on the roof of our education hall several years ago. We also just replaced our heating and cooling system with ductless high efficiency units in our sanctuary, and replaced, because our boiler of about 185 years, I think Jesus installed that boiler, but it finally died to our benefit. And so those are, and we've also we've focused on more intentional recycling. I just have a question, Carl, or for anybody else. I know one of the things in terms of advocacy, especially around electric vehicles, there's been so much conversation with this, bill that President Biden's trying to get through, and one of the aspects of it is to enhance the grid, and anyone familiar with the challenge of, moving in the direction of greater use of electric vehicles and what that's going to do by way of demand on the grid? I really want to buy at least a hybrid vehicle the next time I buy one, but I'm just sort of curious about that. We've there have been some, again, climate related devastating floods and other kinds of weather issues, and when that happens, or heat, and then things overload and the grid kind of crashes. Anybody
Okay.
have thoughts on that? Or
I do. You're looking at a family. Nancy and I have 2 electric vehicles. One is a Leaf that is fully electric, and we have a plug-in Prius. And so we plug them in simply in a wall socket in the garage. It takes a 16 amp circuit, so that's easily available. And we just top them off anytime they're parked in the driveway. It's very convenient.
sorry, Carl, I understand the technology. I'm asking the bigger question of the grid.
Okay,
So I understand. I mean, I get I know how they work. I'm wondering, if we all go to electric vehicles, what's that going to do to the grid? I'm trying to be an advocate, but people do ask this question, and I think it's a legitimate question.
Okay, so I guess I should have noticed my electric bills. We've been using less gas for transportation, and probably 90% of our driving around, certainly all of it around town, and much of it for distance, is supported by electric. So our electric bills have not noticeably gone up, but I should double check that since we got these 2 electric cars. Yeah, in terms of finding places to recharge your electric vehicle, that would be a problem if you're trying to do a major trip. You would need to find charging stations, all over. We only charge at home, and if we go on a long trip, we use the hybrid. So yeah, I suppose I don't really have a good question about how the grid would be impacted by, almost all electric vehicles.
I guess we'd have to invest in the blue sky, where we're purchasing more wind power and that kind of thing, maybe.
I think the more things that can be electrified, the better. And then the electricity needs to come from renewable energy. But eventually we need to get there.
I have to hang up in a moment, but I'm wondering if anyone is, Bethel and White Salmon is talking about really focusing on the General Synod resolution, who will speak for the trees in 2022. And there's a big kind of list of activities. And I'm just curious if there are any other conferences and any other churches in the conference that might be digging into that specifically around that resolution. It'd be fun to do some partnering if anyone's thought about that.
I haven't heard of that resolution. Can you say more about it or what it?
Yeah, and I'm not going to have a lot of details, but I could certainly send you some information, Jenny, if you put it in the put your email in the chat box.
Sure.
It was just one of the, I don't know, maybe 8 resolutions that came to General Synod this year. Maybe someone else on this call might be able to speak more to it, but really caught the interest of our Justice and Peace team at Bethel. And yeah, they want to work on, there's liturgical ideas. It's a creation care resolution.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
You can go online to the UCC.org and look. It used to be they were all written out under events and General Synod. I don't know if it's still parked there or not, but it should be.
Sometimes, yeah. So you're saying, Laura, because sometimes those resolutions have like some suggestions in them, but you're saying they're kind of like umbrella, like liturgical things you could do, or
I did for Earth Day, and
okay,
yeah,
that sounds great.
Here, I think I can get you the. Yeah,
we could probably Google it and find it.
Yeah.
Well, who will speak for the trees?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Here's the link on Google, or just the link on the UCC page.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Jane.
I was going to say Jackie Holloway. I see someplace, there she is, has touched more plants in her life than any other human I've known. Have you done anything specifically with plants that are really doable so that we could get people a measure of feeling satisfied that I've done something? That's usually a way to get started.
Actually, I think I really got involved with, I just liked plants, and then I got involved with more with native plants and with the backyard certification. And so it starts really low. You only have to have they come, well, Cindy from our church was the director or very involved in that. And they come out to your yard and they look around and they look at what you have, what you need. And my yard was saved because I have one lone huge Douglas fir tree. So that gave me a lot of power. And so then I had other things. And so the first level of certification is small. It's like 5-10% of native plants in your yard. And then you can go up levels and keep adding. And so you sort of get your feet wet and you sort of start growing natives. And then for me, and I think it might be good in your list, Carl, all of a sudden I'm finding all these books that are interestingly written. There's this one, he's written a couple, this is, I don't know if it's his best, but it's called like Nature's Best Hope. And it's this Douglas Talamy. I've seen him talk. And he talks about how all our gardens are little islands and they're not connected. And the bugs and the animals and everything in the soil can't get together. But if everybody does a little bit in their yard, you create a bigger and bigger area where the creatures can get. And so it's like, the more you read, the more you do, you can say, I can do little things and it will add up. I mean, I love our carbon project at the church. And I know the church that I think talked to us eventually, I mean, they got people in their church, they'd come and talk to them and they do a little plot in their yard. And so it wasn't like you got to do a backyard certification. It was like, you could make this garden bed, ecologically sound. I mean, that's kind of a neat goal because, most of the people in the church really don't know and understand all. I mean, I take that back. That's not a fair thing to say, but I think I would hope that our green team can start finding little ways that people can do things. And this thing to me tonight has lots of good suggestions. So.
And please do put in the chat or send me your book suggestions.
Okay, I have a couple.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Elizabeth.
This is Liz from Bend, from All People's Church. I write the garden articles for our local paper twice a month. I'm also a master gardener. I am very, very conscientious of water usage and of planting the right plant in the right place. Of course, in Central Oregon, we have growing problems. We have soil problems and we have weather problems. I think all gardeners should try to stop following national trends of planting the most gorgeous, beautiful plant that the world has ever seen and adapt our plantings to the local climate. I try very hard to be positive about doing that and encouraging the gardeners here. So we are making progress in planting more natives and less golf course kind of grass, front yard grasses. So hopefully it will continue to resonate with the people in Central Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. It's great. Yeah, Jan.
So along those same lines, for all these master gardeners here, I have the question. We have way too much lawn. We have a lot of property and a lot of lawn. Yeah. And I've been reading about people that have been tearing up their lawns and putting in a mixture of clover and some other little things that won't need to be mowed and doesn't really need to be watered, or maybe not watered very much. Have you heard of that? Do you have ideas for that?
Anything that I would suggest would not be appropriate for the Portland or for
Mhm.
other areas.
Mhm.
We're using a lot of native grasses, bunch grasses, and yes, we are tearing up the lawns. But
Mhm.
whatever I would suggest would not be appropriate for you people. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I envy, your variety of things that you can grow. We're a little bit more limited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to not be watering.
And that's-
the- Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was just going to say the master gardeners have a Portland number you can always call
Yes.
or email
Yes.
them with your questions.
Yeah. We have plant clinics and they're more than happy to answer questions. And there's such a plethora of information that applies to all of our individual geographic areas in Oregon. So be sure and use them as a resource.
Great. Great. Thanks.
Lynn, how about at Ainsworth? What kinds of things are you all working on or thinking about? Because you also have a substantial piece of ground too.
Oh, we don't have a lot of land, actually. We don't have a parking lot. We do have that little lot that's next to across the alley. We have a very small green team that's tried to get some changes happening, and it's slow. There is one corner where they planted native plants and took out grass that was there. We have a meditation garden that isn't all full of native things. It's a beautiful garden though, and so there was some conflicts around the garden versus more native stuff. But one thing that the man who's been doing a lot of that work has done is starting to take away more grass outside of the garden, which is really good. We also looked into solar panels because we got a new roof a few years ago. And I believe, we tried, some people were really interested in it. We were really trying to make it happen. And I think they said something about the structure of the roof would not sustain solar panels. So I was very disappointed about that, and they gave up. And I don't know if that's a final answer or not. And inside we've had people work on low use lighting. They're not all LED, and we had somebody who volunteered before the pandemic hit. He said he would do it little by little, change them to all LEDs, and then the pandemic hit, and his electrician work has gotten really tough, so he wasn't able to do any yet. But we do have lighting that has cut down on that, but we haven't done a lot.
Sounds like you've done some stuff though, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a struggle with the green. There's some green team people that are pretty upset about the lack of a lot of following for their work, but some of it is, it just takes time. And I have to say my congregation's been involved in so many different things that it's not everybody's going to jump into one thing. But we need to do a bit more.
Lynn, I can point out about the solar. The city of Portland is apparently notorious for requiring engineering documentation about the sturdiness of your roof and everything down to the foundation. I've tried to put solar on my own home and keep running into roadblocks. One company said they just don't work with the city of Portland. They say they have their heart in the right place. They want to be sure your house is strong and handle an earthquake. But it would cost maybe $1,000 or so to get the engineering analysis.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
And then they may find that, well, you're going to have to bolt to the foundation, so you're earthquake proof, and then that's thousands and so forth. Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head. That was the problem. Having to come up with so much money to just get it looked at, and then because it's a brick church, and we're right now we're grandfathered in, but there was a whole big thing about brick buildings and putting signs up to say these are dangerous. I think they felt it was just too much to go on.
Yeah, our kids live in Southeast Portland, and they were going to have solar panels put on their garage, and they were also getting a new roof. So the solar panel group came out and looked at it. Okay, and then the roofers came out. They needed new plywood put on, so they had new plywood put on. They got their roof on. Then the solar panel guys came out and they said, "You what? You got you got plywood on there? That ruins all of our calculations. We can't do it."
Oh,
Too heavy. Yeah.
So yeah, you don't know.
But they love their electric car. I was just going to tell you one more tiny thing that makes a difference. I mean, you're just going to say, how can we do this better? And gosh, how long ago did we start? We cut up little bitty squares. You know how at coffee hour, everyone used to use napkins? Mm-hmm. So somebody said, okay, so you cut up some used dish towels and cloths and napkins that people have donated, make them small squares. And so somebody just takes those home. They don't coordinated, they don't look beautiful. But at coffee hour, we use those funny little napkins. Everybody's laughing who sees them because they think, wow, that's some coffee hour they have at Lake Oswego UCC. But it is just those funny little napkins that people say, why are they using these? Is it because they get used over and over and over? And
That's a good idea.
They're not paper. It's tiny, but it puts something in your head about you can do a small thing.
Yeah, we did have a push, and we've done away with, this is pre-pandemic. We were doing away with throwaway stuff. We were trying to use dishes for fellowship hour and all that. They worked on that. Got rid of styrofoam quite a long time ago, but then they had these horrible little plastic inserts and plastic holders for coffee. Finally got, that took a while, but that was some years ago. We got rid of those. And then, but the last thing was just use washables.
Well, and it's hard with the pandemic too. That has thrown a wrench in a lot of that when you have to be so careful about all the packaging, prepackaged stuff, and what you're touching, not touching, and how things get cleaned. And so, that's thrown a wrench in things. For
sure. We haven't been in person. We did one reception since the pandemic, and then that was we told people it would be lack of touch for the little bit of food. It was a snack, a big cookie. And instead of putting in plastic bags, that we went out and bought those little paper sleeves kind of things. Mm-hmm. And we were trying to be careful. But it is very hard.
So I noticed that Janet put in the chat about community solar. Apparently you've joined a community solar that's not on your church, but you can invest in, and that reminds me that the Oregon Clean Power Co-op, the big project right now is to support the Warm Springs Reservation with a major solar project, and they are looking for people to support that in terms of community solar. I will add that to the list of resources because it's a fascinating way to help a very impoverished tribe.
Yeah, thank you, Carl. Yeah, and I was wondering, Janet, if you had any other, want to share anything more about what's going on in Medford or what you all are doing down there.
Well, I appreciate, I joined you late, so I wanted to sneak in without interrupting. But gosh, I'm excited about all that you've mentioned. Our parking lot's a mess. We're talking about repaving it. Now I have great ammunition for let's not pave it. Let's do a big swale and maybe some pavers. Right now we have, about the Alameda fire we had a year ago. So we're working real hard to get some welcome baskets together for those folks who are getting to move finally into some housing, FEMA trailers and that kind of thing. So we're working on that, and it doesn't have much to do with greening our planet, except that we were able to get no plastic laundry detergent in sheets. Try True Earth if you get a chance. Those people, if you order a packet of laundry sheets, it's just no water, no plastic, it comes in a paper envelope. They donate for every order they have from you, they donate to someone. They sent us 3,300 loads of laundry detergent. So we get to share that with the folks, and we're working with some Hispanic folks who aren't eligible for FEMA trailers. So that's one of our biggies. And if you haven't watched on Netflix, Kiss the Ground about soil regeneration, please do. We bought the video. It's an hour and 15 minutes on Netflix, but it has a version that is for a farmer and for schools. So we're trying to get that Kiss the Ground video out so that people can see about regeneration. I love digging up the plastic. Whoa, what a job. Way to go. I've taken lots of notes. Small napkins, the rain garden, soil your undies. I mentioned that we have a little group of kids that have a arboretum here in Central Point where I live. And I told the lady, gee, you ought to try this. And now I've seen how it works. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Personally, we joined a community solar, wasn't as available because PP&L didn't want you to actually be able to do it. But there is a group, and they're located in Ashland, and we were able to join them. They're building on the Shakespeare Festival warehouse roof, 100 kilowatt hours, and we bought 13 of those for $12,000. So it's not real cheap. And I don't know how you get a church to do it, but it might be a way. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing all those ideas as well. And yeah, I think, you, especially just given your proximity to all the fires and to the Alameda fires, I mean, you're right there on the front lines of climate change. So yeah, I mean, we all are, but I think especially our folks in the South, for those of us in Metro Portland, you all and our siblings in California, just the devastation and the drought and the fires is so real. So yeah, we're thinking of you.
Thank you.
Any other ideas or things that folks want to share for the good of our group tonight? We've got lots of stuff in the chat. Yeah, Nancy.
Yeah, I didn't want to take time away from folks elsewhere. I've so appreciated hearing what's going on at other churches. Two things I'm interested in are sustainable lunches. Kids are back in school, and all those little sandwich bags and all the wrappings and whatnot that go into lunches. There was a great article in the Oregonian Life and Culture a couple of weeks ago that actually told where you can buy the things that are needed. And so we have like beeswax wrap and things like that at home, but I wasn't familiar yet with the silicone little bags and containers that are washable and reusable. We just rewash plastic bags here and use them. So that's one thing that we're doing differently, moving toward in our house. But the other thing is lawns. It was driving me nuts over the summer when we already have a drought and I was watching people with the sprinklers going on their grass, even though the grass can take it. So whatever we might all be able to do as allies and advocates in compassionate, kind ways, non-accusatory, to help encourage folks to do something other than plant and water a big lawn. And native plants are obviously a whole better way to go, but I think we all need to be thinking hard about moving away from the big grassy areas and finding other uses for our soil to help it breathe better.
Mm-hmm.
And artificial turf is not the answer.
No.
that is just black plastic turned green.
So they're not cheap, but we just bought these and they're called stashers. And I think we got these at
Those are the ones.
stashers. Yeah. It's like this, and you can put anything in, and they are hand washable or dish washable. And so these are sandwich size or fruit or vegetable size. And they say they last for a very long time. We've now had them one day and have washed them once. So I'll let you know how that goes.
What are they called again?
Stashers.
Stashers.
And it says,
Oh.
endlessly reusable platinum silicone, eliminate single-use plastic. There you
The
go.
other fun side.
We got one for Christmas and it still looks good as new.
Oh, does it? Okay. They know what that you wanted for Christmas.
Yes, they do.
And if we're doing product placement, so here's the laundry.
I've never heard of that.
This little envelope, 60 loads
Mm.
of laundry in this little envelope.
Really?
Okay.
Incredible. Yeah.
So does it work, Carl?
Mhm.
Nancy, comment? You
Carl
go.
wouldn't know, but it works really well.
I just ordered a bunch, so
works
I'm
really
glad
well.
to hear that.
Yeah, they're little sheets, and you cut them to smaller sizes for smaller loads. I find they're the right amount of soap. They work well. I've been real pleased with them.
The True Earths work well too. They're from British Columbia. So if you've got a USA manufacturer, that's good too.
It's the same thing. This company, Earth Breeze, donates. If you buy from them, then they donate soap to, you get to choose whether it goes to a homeless shelter or domestic violence resource facility. There are a lot of, they do really good social justice work along with producing the soap that doesn't have all the liquid in the big bottles.
Great.
I was just looking through that the General Synod resolution, which is fabulous. So I would encourage us, and Carl, maybe you put this on the note for the Green Team, that there's a lot of specific suggestions in there or ways that we could think about working together. Thanks, Lynn. See you later. Yeah, and even just your quick comment about the earth breathing, I've never heard that before, but that's beautiful. That whole cyclical seasonal thing. And I think there's some wonderful like liturgical things we could do with that too, and thinking about breath and the spirit. And so, yeah, there's a lot to work with there from the faith aspect.
It's amazing to see that carbon dioxide actually goes down for 6 months.
Yeah.
But then it goes back up again, even higher.
Yeah. Well, any other final thoughts that folks want to share as we wrap up our time?
Well, I'm just excited at all these new options and opportunities, and can't wait to get started on something.
That's great.
Okay. Please feel free to send me anything you'd like put into our resource list. And if I have your email, I will send out what we finally put together out to all of you.
Yeah, but that's great. We'll save the chat and make sure that all gets in there. Well, let me, I think we'll close us with a blessing, unless there's anything else that folks have tonight. This is actually a picture from my office window. This was last December on just one of those beautiful kind of rainy days where the sun came out and there's a rainbow there, if you can see it, kind of right across through the trees. So I'm gonna close us with a prayer. It's from a book called Prayers for 1,000 Years, but this is with regards to the earth. So we can hear this as our benediction tonight. Lie quietly along the earth, that sky may send its strength through you. Absorbed from eons of tumultuous change, the rhythms pulsing up through fire and water, rock and roots of growing things, your body filtering with flesh and spirit, earth's vibrant offering to the sky. You are the instrument of peace, the promise of renewal to a time and place not of your body, but dependent on your willingness to give yourself, to let goodness shape 1,000 years to come. May blessings be your gift, both given and received. Great Spirit, creator of us all, dear Mother Earth, combine your might and use our love to make this planet whole for now and forever. Amen.